the time they don't believe is on their side. And what apparently transpired over the weekend, and this person would know, they're in contact with the people I'm about to say, is that the governor's staff is now snipping at the Senate Majority Leader and House Speaker.
Virginia Democrats are in a full-blown panic right now as they begin to anticipate a crushing blow coming down from the state Supreme Court here in Virginia that will smash their little gerrymandered lobster map into smithereens. And all I can say is they were warned and they did it anyway. On today's episode, we'll go over who's saying what, the legal warning that Democrats ignored in their pursuit for unchecked power. And Ken Cuccinelli, a former attorney general here in Virginia, reads the tea leaves on what could happen next. And that's a real good indication of why Democrats are crashing out. If you're new here, hi, I'm Terry. I'm a fed-up Gen Xer and ticked off Virginian, I've lived here my whole life, who worked behind the scenes in media for years, and now I'm happily behind the microphone so that you and I can talk open and freely about what's really going on. Welcome to Smart Girl Politics. Alrighty, let's just get right into it. We've been talking a lot on this channel about the gerrymandering attempt here in Virginia, and Democrats are said to be crashing out in a big way. They're seeing their chances of having this lobster map become reality crashing down in flames. And they have no one to blame but themselves, as is usually the case. Let's listen to Democrat consultant Dan Turrentine. He's a Hillary guy, just keep that in mind, just to kind of give you an idea where he is on the political spectrum. And he reveals what he heard over the weekend. And there was a little clip of it at the beginning of the episode, but I want you to hear the entire thing.
Well, I talked to some of those same people yesterday, and what I was told is they now think it's less than 50% that the court will let the certification go through. And what really triggered it, they said, was when the court didn't rule by Friday afternoon. The time they don't believe is on their side. And what apparently transpired over the weekend, and this person would know, they're in contact with the people I'm about to say, is that the governor's staff is now snipping at the Senate Majority Leader and House Speaker, that they warned them last fall this would not pass legal review.
So cue the Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. The finger pointing has begun because there's some hints about what might happen with the Supreme Court of Virginia, which is, of course, considering the legality, the constitutionality of the process by which Virginia Democrats push this gerrymander referendum in front of voters. As Dan said in the clip we played right there was a big deadline missed last Friday, May 1st. That is when the Virginia Board of Elections met. And on their agenda was the certification of the April 21st referendum vote, in which the yes side narrowly by 3 percentage points, which is narrow in Virginia, approved this new lobster map. The Board of Election was not able to certify the election results because the Supreme Court earlier in the week had told Jay Jones, Attorney General, who's also anxious to certify the results because they want it enshrined, told him, no, you may not. We are still deciding this and you will not certify the results. So that was a big blow. And I think because, as Dan mentioned, happened on Friday, not certified, over the weekend, the blame game began. The pointing, it's glorious. Now, who might he be talking about here? He said that the governor's office is blaming some people, and it's almost definitely staffers for Spamberger, it sounds like, and probably for our Democrat senators, Tim Kaine and John Warner. It seems like maybe some people are talking and pointing fingers, and they're pointing them directly at Louise Lucas and Don Scott. They are the Democrat leaders. Don Scott leads the House of Delegates. He's a Democrat. He is an ex-con. And Louise Lucas, who leads a Democrat also, who is the president pro tempore of the state Senate in Virginia. The thought here, I think, is that the likes of Kaine, Warner, and Spamberger, at some point in the past, like last October, when this first became a thing, when Louise Lucas started really pushing this 10-1 map that she wanted, that they maybe said, slow down, this might not pass legal scrutiny, and they were smacked down. It sounds like Louise Lucas, the state Democrats, smacked them right down. So let's take a look at Louise Lucas, what she said at the time. Well, shortly after. This is a big hint about who's pointing fingers at whom. This is January. So this is the day before Spanberger is sworn in, but the General Assembly is their legislative session is already underway. And this is what she has to say. I have the utmost respect for Senator Kaine and Senator Warner, but we do not need coaching on redistricting coming from a cuck chair in the corner. She's a lovely woman. How about you all stay focused on the fascist in the White House and let us handle redistricting? 10-1, that's her thing. She's selling T-shirts, 10-1. She's been celebrating for months about this. Now, Spanberger is particularly under the thumb of Louise Lucas and Don Scott because Spanberger has dreams of one day running for president. And well, she can't do that if she doesn't bow down to the likes of Louise Lucas and Don Scott. Louise Lucas is an odious little woman who uses race to make people like Abigail Spanberger fall into line. If Abigail Spanberger wants to be president, she's going to have the approval of Black Democrats like Louise Lucas and Don Scott. So this is why I won't support gerrymandering if I am elected governor becomes the face of gerrymandering in Virginia, because she is bowing down to Louise Lucas and Don Scott. They were warned, and now the finger pointing begins. Now, here's Louise Lucas. I love to point out she's just a vile woman. This is her on X after she fell suspiciously silent over the weekend. She is always out there, 10-1. And like I said, with her little foul-mouthed ways, she's always kind of gloating and pre-celebrating. She's prematurely celebrating that this 10-1 lobster map's going to happen. So here's what happened on X, just to give you an idea of who Louise Lucas is, who the woman that Abigail Spanberger is going to have to kowtow to for the next 4 years. Now, one of my favorite follows, JB, over on X, he put this out. Where the hell is Louise Lucas? Because as we said, she's been out there gloating and celebrating that this 10-1 lobster map that she designed was going to happen. And then she fell suspiciously silent once the Board of Elections was not able to certify the votes. So here comes Louise. I was partying my ass off all weekend long. Where the hell were you? This is the woman who controls Abigail Spanberger. So just keep an eye on this. Isn't she a sweet woman? And by the way, it looks like the prediction markets are getting on board with a crushing Democrat loss at the hands of the Virginia State Supreme Court. It was up and down there for a while, but now it is cratering. And the predictions that say if you put any stock in prediction markets, the odds of the Virginia redistricting plan holding up have fallen to about 50-50 on Polymarket. And it looks to me like that's a pretty steep drop there. So that's what the prediction markets are indicating right now, which would kind of line up with why Democrats are crashing out in a big way. The best part about all of this, though, is that Democrats were warned not to do this, but their desire for power blinded them to the legal ramifications of jamming the referendum through. And it sounds like some people on their own side warned them, but you know who else warned them? Our former Attorney General Jason Miyares, who at the time in October told them what they're doing is not legal, nor is it constitutional. And I actually wrote about it. This is dated October 28th. So this is just at the height of it when they were trying to cram this through the week before the elections. Miyares smacks down Virginia Dems. Sorry, kids, you can't rewrite the Constitution in the middle of an election. I don't want to get too much into it. You know what the things are, but it recaps how they went into a special session last October with a goal to take seats away from Republicans in the 2026 midterms, which is what we're seeing unfold with this referendum. The special legislative session began that Monday afternoon, and they're hoping to repeal and replace the amendment to the state constitution, blah, 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 blah. The big sticking point here, I wrote, is that Democrats may have missed their opportunity to pass a new constitutional amendment, which would invalidate the old one before, and these are very key words here, the next general election as is required by the state constitution. That little thing. It could be argued that the next general election is already underway as early in-person voting began September 19th, and hundreds of thousands, and Ken Cuccinelli said millions of votes, or 1 million votes had already been cast. And that's exactly what Attorney General Miyares argued in a legal opinion that he issued in October before any of this happened. In his opinion, he wrote, a regular session of the General Assembly will commence January 14th, 2026. Although November 4th, 2025 is an election day in the Commonwealth, it, standing alone, does not constitute the next general election under Article 12, Section 1. Under current Virginia law, the election voting process in Virginia spans 45 days. The closing of the polls on November 4th, 2025 will be the culmination of the ongoing election process, which commenced September 19th, 2025. The Attorney General concluded accordingly, because a general election of delegates is already underway, the November 4th culmination of this 2025 election cannot be deemed to be the next general election. It is the current general election. And that's one of the things that the Virginia State Supreme Court has to decide, whether the early voting, which was underway for well over a month at this point, constituted a new election, an intervening election, or the current election. And it seems pretty clear it was the current election. I will put that link in the description box so you all can read it. So, yeah, let the circular firing squad begin. I love nothing more than a Democrat's circular firing squad. It's the best entertainment around. Now, here's Virginia Attorney General, or former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, who's been really out front on the legality of this, reading the tea leaves on what happens next. Again, we go over to red states, where the Attorney General wrote a wonderful op-ed that was published Monday. So this is fresh news. He talks about some legal whiplash for the Democrats. He says the reality came into sharper focus last week when the Virginia Supreme Court refused to lift the injunction blocking certification of the referendum. If the justices believed this process was clearly on solid constitutional footing, they could have let certification proceed. They didn't. That qualifies as a tea leaf. Now let's dispense with the spin. The legal case isn't about partisan advantage or which set of congressional maps someone prefers. It's about whether the General Assembly followed the rules required to amend Virginia's Constitution in the first place. And those rules aren't suggestions. They're guardrails designed to prevent exactly what happened here, a rushed mid-election power play to rewrite the system in favor of those in power. Again, I will put the link to this one also in the description box. And he goes over very thoroughly the 45-day rule, the election, the intervening election. This part from Ken is really good, too. For years, the Dems have been telling us that early voting is sacrosanct, beyond criticism, beyond question. But when early voting got in the way of this particular power grab, the message suddenly changed. Vote early at your own risk, which we don't think the Supreme Court of Virginia is going to like. The Virginia Supreme Court seems to understand the stakes. This is Ken Cuccinelli. I'm continuing with him. It has already moved with unusual speed, briefs filed within days, oral argument held almost immediately, and with good reason. As of May 1st, Congressional District Committee chairs begin receiving candidate filings. The court knows that uncertainty over whether this referendum and any maps that follow from it are even valid cannot drag on. A decision is coming, and it's coming soon. He said all of this hinges on one simple question. Did the Democrat General Assembly follow the Constitution and laws of Virginia? That's the question before the court, not whether one side won a close vote, not whether the outcome is politically convenient, but whether the rules were followed. The votes were cast. Now the Constitution gets its say. And again, we are on lookout 24/7 for this ruling from the Supreme Court. It seems the Democrats aren't feeling so good about it. They're not feeling so good about it. But no, okay, now it's your turn. I want you to be the prognosticator. I want you to read the tea leaves. Will the Virginia State Supreme Court obliterate the Democrats' lobster map? Let me know your thoughts. Drop me a comment down in the comments section. I'd love to know what you're thinking. I know what I'm thinking. I kind of side with Ken on this. Drop me that prediction in the comments. I want to know. Let me know. And you know what? Why not subscribe, like, share, and do all those other things while you're there? Let's make this a permanent relationship. Let's make it official. All right. And if you want to know how the recent United States Supreme Court decision is going to affect Virginia and its gerrymandering efforts by the Democrats and the upcoming midterms, you'll want to watch this next video right here. That's all I've got for you this time around. As always, you guys be safe out there, and I will see you next time. Bye.